You're listening to the What's Happening podcast with Gary Watts.
Good morning. I'm here today with Tyler Pedersen and Luke Reiland with Push, Pedal, and Pull. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
Good.
So it's a beautiful fall day, and I thought we'd talk about fitness today. And maybe you could both go through, how did you get to this area, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City? Maybe give a little bit of background on sports, high school, and whatever you want to talk about, how you made the journey to get to where we're at today. Tell us a little bit about your families, too.
Yeah, sure. Luke and I grew up in Eagle Grove, Iowa, north central Iowa. And
what's it close to?
Webster City, Fort Dodge.
Okay.
Yep.
So
20
north,
minutes from each.
35 north, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It's Iowa State country, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But we were smart enough to know better, and both grew up Iowa fans. Luke and I, unfortunately, are both big Dallas Cowboy fans. We had a lot in common when we were kids. It was pretty easy being a Cowboys fan in the 90s. But we grew up in Eagle Grove. We've known each other since we were 5 years old, and we're best friends. We graduated high school '02, and we were both four-sport athletes. We played different sports in the winter and the spring, but I mean, we were always together. Small town, so everybody did everything together, and we were pretty fortunate in that we had really good athletes in the grade above us, below us, in our grade. So we had a lot of success, and it was great.
Yeah, I know, especially in small schools, you see waves of athletes come through. We were definitely, it was a special 2 to 3 years in Eagle Grove. The basketball team made the state tournament for the first time ever. The baseball team went runner-up in '01 and then a state title in '02. The wrestling team, we went fourth our junior year in state duels. Multiple state champs through those time frames, but it was special. We had a lot of athletes. It was crazy. We'd have wrestlers at open gym basketball on Sundays. Wow. Like we would, because we were buddies, we were like, we don't care what sport we play. We just want to hang out with our buddies.
We looked for any parent that was a teacher that could open the gym up for us. And we just go up there for hours. And that's all we would do. And if the gym wasn't an option, we'd find a park and we'd get as many guys as we could. This was before cell phones. So You'd ride your bike around town and look for the pile of bicycles on the side of the road. And that's where you knew where the action was at. And it was just what we did. And so I think that along with some pretty serious talent really helped us excel and succeed in high school sports.
Yeah, we had great athletes. My one regret from high school is I didn't spend more time in the weight room.
Yep.
I think a lot of us would probably say that. Like, you're anywhere from 14 to 18 years old, and you want to do things you want to do and have fun and hang out. But, I really wish I could have spent more time in the weight room, and I wanted to spend more time in the weight room. I have a 14-year-old stepson, and he's a freshman right now. And I try to reiterate that to him, like, dude, you want to be successful in sports in the next 2, 3, 4 years. It starts now. You need to get in there and work hard. And, that's my one big regret. So trying to pass that along, but, we having a lot of success, I think, especially for us, because we went on to play sports in college. Ty played football at Iowa Central. I played baseball at Iowa Central. So we even took our friendship and our sports to the next level too. But that played our high school success and work ethic played a big role in, I think, not just college, but where we are now too.
Talk a little bit about lifting. What's too young? You mentioned your stepson's 14. Is that about the right age to get into some things? Or?
Gage has been lifting for probably 4 or 5 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have a 10-year-old daughter who I have lifting right now as well. But when I say lifting, before anybody freaks out, it's not necessarily weight. I'm not putting a bunch of weight on her back and having her back squat. I'm teaching her proper functional movement. So, when she squats, making sure she's squatting through her heels and she keeps her butt back and her chest tall. And she's doing the movements properly. We don't put weight on the barbell until they consistently show me that they can do the movements properly. But I can tell you right now, Gage Gage at 14 years old, he's a freshman. He weighs 130 pounds. Not terribly thick. He's kind of a string bean. He's taller than I am now. He power cleans all of his buddies that weigh 30, 40 pounds more than him because his technique is just spot on. And that's because he's got thousands of reps under his belt at 14 years old.
It's going to keep him from injuries too down the road, right? So he knows how to do it right.
Absolutely.
I know that's part of having a trainer is that, that whether you're making the movements, going through it, they can watch it and pay attention if you're doing it right or not. So
everybody's about weight. You got to take the weight off. You got to peel it off. Leave your ego at the door and focus on movement and technique first.
And I think had we known that when we were in school, that could have paid dividends because I was kind of a late grower. I didn't hit my growth spurt until between my freshman and sophomore year. And our buddies that are a grade above us were big guys. And we'd go to the morning weights and I see them loading these plates up and mentally I'm thinking, well, I got to keep up with these guys. They're my friends. They're just, we are a group and I have to keep up with them. And you get yourself in some pretty dangerous positions. And if you don't have the right coaches in there or trainers, you can really, get yourself in trouble. So I think that Luke is a trainer. Luke owns a couple gyms. His kids are different than most of the kids coming through those lifting programs and that they're learning the building blocks pretty early. And I think that that's huge for them.
Yeah, it's a good point. We, back when we went through, it was the grip and rip mentality, Ty just back squatted 315. All right, I'm going to put 320 on and go, and that could get you in trouble. I think fortunately neither of us or any of our close buddies had any serious injuries, maybe an ACL here and there, but that's definitely something that as a parent and a gym owner with clients outside of just my kids, that we have to think about, is maintaining good movement. But I work with adults too. So going down that route, our CrossFit gyms, we own a couple CrossFit gyms. It's all about functional movement. So, keeping them moving properly, being able to squat, to get up and out of a chair or a couch or the toilet, or, put something up overhead on a shelf. It's all about functional movement. We want to translate what you do in the gym to what you do, in real life. So that's something for me, transitioning from high school sports into now my professional career, both at P3 and then the gyms is maintaining functional movement. There's staying younger longer.
One of the things I was sitting here thinking about it while we're talking is, small schools, you just ran around with your buddies, had fun. You went out in the morning, came home for dinner. It's kind of the way we were, and you just had fun. To me, and you did it for sports, so you got a sample of everything. So you had your teammates, your different skill sets, different sports. And now it seems like everything's so specialized. Like if you want to be really, really good at volleyball, all you do is do volleyball year-round. Or if you want to wrestle, you wrestle year-round. To me, I don't know how you guys think. Of course, I'm an old guy here, but I think all the sports help you in a lot of different ways if you can get out for everything, especially in high school. Now, I understand college, you got to specialize if you're going to go on and play. But it seems to me today a lot of kids get caught up on, for like baseball. They play baseball in the fall and in the winter. They in the spring and summer. They of course got leagues. So, what's your guys' thoughts on sports and doing it all, trying to do it all?
I've heard like Urban Meyer looked for multi-sport athletes.
Yeah.
That's who he went after first because I think there are parallels from each sport that overlap. You may see something in a basketball passing lane that you picked up on from playing wide receiver or playing quarterback, something that just bleeds right into the other sport. And I think that Urban is one of plenty of coaches that have that same kind of thought process as let's get a guy that is just an athlete and gets it. And so that was always my approach. And I have 2 little kids, but that'll be my approach with them is just introduce them to everything. They'll figure out what they like and what they don't like, but just make sure that they have the opportunity to try everything.
To experience it.
Yeah. You only get to be a kid once. Right. So I think might as well try everything.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure.
How about you, Luke? What do you think?
It's kind of a hot button right now. Not just with me, but in the Des Moines area, which is where I reside, a lot of big schools, and it's become a huge question of whether to specialize. Gage, my stepson's at Johnston. I mean, so many kids. His freshman football team they're loaded. If they don't win a state title by the time they graduate, I'll be very surprised. He's on the B squad. He's not one of the better players on the team. He's pretty good. He's pretty fast, but we constantly tell them, you're not doing one sport. You're doing at least two. So he wrestles. He also runs track. Oakley does tennis. We put her in gymnastics. She's going to do wrestling this year, whether she likes it or not. But we try to get him in multiple sports. However, the flip side to that is in the bigger schools, it's harder to break the lineup if you're not really good at that sport. And how do you get really good at that sport? By specializing in that sport, going out and getting, added training from other places. I get it. I really do. But we're small town kids. You play them all. Play them all until you absolutely can't play them all anymore. And I'm not going to say it's sad, because you see a lot of kids with great success in one sport. I'm going to pick on wrestling here for a minute, but wrestling is a very demanding sport, whether it's all year or just for 4 months out of the year. And the kids that do this, they go from folk style to freestyle and to Greco. They go to Fargo at the end of July, and they make this an entire season. They're so burnt out. I've seen kids that are zombies walking into the room because their parents are forcing them to be there. So the parent side of it, I got an opinion on that as well. I think what happens is parents see success in one sport with their kids, and it's almost a drug to them.
Right.
And they want to, live through their kids, and they want to keep their kids going in that sport because they're having more success with it. Let's get rid of the other sports. You're the best at this sport. Go ahead and keep playing this sport and, have success. So I think the parents are pushing this, a little bit as well. And I don't know. I have my opinions. Parents that specialize, they have their opinions, but I don't know. It's a tough one. But I'm always going to be on the side of multi-sport.
Then you hear stories like I just saw there was a high school girl that ran in her, I don't know if state has happened yet, but district cross country meet, and it was on one side of the state, and she caught a private flight to fly back and play in her district volleyball game. And this is a high school girl here in Iowa. It was just last week. And Aaron Graves plays D-line here at Iowa now. I think he was same in high school. He'd go down and wrestle in the state tournament, and then he drove back to play in his district basketball game that night. And I like that. I think it's great. And I think if you asked either of those kids 20 years from now, they'd be really glad that they did that.
How many football kids are wrestlers?
Yeah.
Austin Blythe, all the guys that, you see. Keeter. The NFL, every now and then, on one of the casts, they'll start talking about, the kid wrestled in high school. He was a state champ or a 2-time state champ. And it's like, that's the exact reason why these kids should be playing multiple
What's
sports.
a tougher sport than wrestling? Mentally, physically?
Well,
don't get him started.
I mean, I got friends that wrestled. I mean, it's just, I played basketball or tried to, but wrestling always fascinated me.
Yeah, and there's a lot of sports that I don't have any experience in that are very demanding. But speaking on what I know, wrestling is without a doubt, because there's, especially when we went through, you had the weight cutting side of it too,
Right?
And that sucks. Yeah. That sucks really bad.
It's not as bad, is it, anymore?
Well, there's a lot of rules against it now. They try to prevent the kids from doing it too quickly and how much they can do. So yes, it is. It's not solving the problem, but it is making it a little bit bearable. They have descent plans and hydration tests and all this other stuff. But yeah, back when we were there.
The other unique thing is typically, like when we would play open gym or pick up basketball, Luke would come in, a couple of other guys, wrestling guys would come in, and most of the wrestlers, they'd throw up a jump shot and it hit nothing but backboard. Luke was different in that he could actually play basketball. So usually wrestlers who are very specific to their one sport, they are those kind of throw it off the backboard, hope you don't crack the glass. so it's not very often that you see some finesse in the wrestlers to come in and play a real specific sport like basketball.
Yeah.
So
might not be very politically correct, but when I hear the term athlete, it's very, specific to somebody that can do all kinds of sports. They can do a lot of things. They can move laterally, they can jump, they can run, they can, play ball sports, things
usually
like that.
Ball, yeah.
Generally speaking, and I say that very wide, generally speaking, wrestlers, especially the hardcore wrestlers that do it a lot, they wrestle.
Yeah.
You give them a basketball and they don't even
They
they don't even know what hoop it goes.
roll around on it.
But then again, generally speaking, it's not all of them. But that's the one sport that, wrestlers are built different.
Yeah.
When you are on the street and you see a wrestler walk by, maybe it's their ears,
Cauliflower. Yeah.
maybe it's, but they just have a demeanor about them and a look about them, and you don't want to mess with them. That's for sure.
How does that carry over to football? Tell us why a lot of these good linemen were wrestlers and linebackers.
Tough.
Yeah, I think physically it's just the movement. Like as a wrestler, good body position. You understand how the body moves and how you need to, project your body and power into somebody else. And I think that translates directly into a lineman. I was never a lineman, but seeing what they have to do, and then mentality-wise, wrestlers are tough, tough as nails.
Plus, the linemen have to use their hands a lot, right?
Yep.
That know how to pressure points and push and
Absolutely.
leverage. You learn that in football or wrestling.
Yep,
Obviously, for football.
absolutely. Yep.
So, take us back. Maybe give us some ideas here before we kind of get into push, pedal, and pull. What's your most memorable moments in high school and college in some athletic event? You got some memories here. I just always fascinated by what that taught you and maybe some good ideas that you have.
Man, well, we won the state baseball championship our senior year.
What year was that?
02.
02. Okay.
And
who'd you play?
Dyersville, yeah.
Dyersville, they're in there every year.
Every year. And, our junior year, we were a strike away from winning it. And
wow.
We played Emmitsburg and
beat Dyersville in semis.
Beat Dyersville. And we had a 2-run lead going into the last inning. And
bases loaded.
It was unfortunate, but we ended up blowing the lead. We lost it, and that was pretty tough. We had really good friends in the group, in the class ahead of us, and we're still really close with them. And
did you pitch or would you play?
I was an infielder. Luke was a catcher.
I caught.
Catcher.
Yep.
Okay.
And so I think going through that hardship of it was right there, and state championships, other than cross country or individual wrestling, some team wrestling in the 90s, Eagle Grove doesn't win state championships. So to have it right there and we lost it, to get over that hurdle into our senior year, I don't know if we get out of districts our senior year had we not gone through what we did the year before. We were down to our last out, right? And we had a guy on second, and our buddy hit a chopper, went right over the pitcher. It hit the lip where the grass meets the dirt, and it bounced right over the shortstop's head. And we rallied and won that game, and then we went on to state, and nobody touched us. It was just, but if we hadn't have gone through that in our junior year, I'm not sure that we rally in that district game, win it, and then move on. So
in your junior and senior year, did you work harder? Did you bat more?
I think it was more so that we just knew what that tasted like and how we could get there again. And it didn't hurt that we have a great friend who was unhittable. He's the best pitcher in the state that year by far. And we had good talent. We knew that we didn't want to squander it.
Yeah, we had seven of 9 starters play college baseball from that team.
From a little 2A school.
Yeah. Those 2 years were crazy. I mean, going back to our junior year, Emmitsburg had bases loaded, 2 outs. We were up 2 runs, and they get a double over our center fielder's head. We're supposed to be playing no doubles, nothing over our head. He gets it over our head. Guy on first run, and I'm catching, of course, comes around, slides into home. They pile on home plate right in front of me, and I'll never forget it. It was awful. It was just the worst feeling. And then our senior year, the play he's talking about, Bishop Garrigan, Algona, they beat us both times during the year. They had two of our only 3 losses that year, and we had to play them and beat them in the district final in order to move on. And we got lucky, I would say, but ended up that went 9 innings.
Yeah,
that went extra innings. So we ended up winning that, and then went on for the state title. But those 2 years of baseball were wild.
Yeah,
they were pretty crazy.
And it's the games; those stories are great. I mean, we'll remember them forever. The bus rides to and from. It's just, I mean, that's as good as it gets. It was just some of the funniest stories, some of the funniest moments. Guys on our team that just, I mean, it made that part of growing up special. Right. And that's why I don't know if it's unique. I think it is, but we all stay really close. We all stay in contact. We get together for the NCAA basketball tournament every year. He just went fishing up in Minnesota with a bunch of high school buddies. So we're as close now as we were 20 years ago. And it's because of stories like that, trips like that.
That's great. You were close when you were kids. And then as you grew up, you're still close. So that's a neat thing. That's what sports do for you.
Yeah. And I guess, if you want to talk about wrestling, I suppose that was pretty.
Yeah. I kind of a very similar situation individually in wrestling that we did in baseball. I made the finals my sophomore year at 103 pounds, by the way.
103, really? I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, I cut a lot of weight that year. It was bad. Back to the whole weight cutting thing. There were no rules back then. Right. We're going to weigh in at 6:30 in the morning, and you just weigh in under what you're supposed to weigh, and that's it.
What'd you eat? Carrots?
I had 1 meal a week. I had one full meal a week I was able to eat. Everything else was just pick and gum. My Spanish teacher let me sleep in class. She didn't care. She was just like, she cared, but
how'd you have the energy to wrestle?
That was a big question. Yeah. On meet days, back then we weighed in at 6:30 in the morning. So I had all day to, eat and kind of get a little bit of energy. Right. So I was okay. Our junior year, they switched it to weighing in 2 hours before the meet. So I could still eat. I wasn't cutting as much weight, but I could still eat and get a little bit of energy beforehand. But you had to be really careful you didn't eat the wrong stuff because
get sick.
Then you get sick. But that year, I wasn't even ranked at the beginning of the season. That was back when Dan McCool did all the rankings and stuff, and he didn't really have me on the radar. And throughout the season, I beat a couple good kids, made my way into the rankings, and then the state tournament came around, and for some reason, I just was able to figure out the state tournament. Like a lot of kids get there, they get under the lights with all the people, and some fold. A lot of them fold. I was able to just figure it out. It didn't bother me at all. Made the finals, wrestled a freshman named Mac Ryder, and he ended up going on to be a 4-time state champ. And I was ahead of him 3-1 until the last 5 seconds, and they gave him a takedown, very controversial takedown. And I never watched the tape ever until last year.
Yeah.
Pin Doctors put it on. He put it on Facebook, and I was forced to watch it. And it's bad. They gave him a takedown that shouldn't have been, which, it's 23 years ago, whatever. Yeah. Maybe a little bit bitter about
Never
it
thought
still.
About
but
it since.
Was it takedown 2 points?
Yeah.
So
that tied it.
Yeah.
It went into overtime, and Max shot in on me, and I scored my takedown during regular time. I was long. I was kind of lanky. He was super short. I was able to get a leg around the backside and throw a leg in and get the 2. Well, I tried it again in overtime, and he hipped into me and took me down. So I ended up losing in overtime my sophomore year. Junior year, placed 4th. I was in a heck of a bracket. The top 4 guys were on the same side of the bracket, and they were tough. The senior, the guy that won that year, was a 2-timer, I believe. But anyway, 4th junior year, and then senior, I was able to win it. I got back to the finals and won it that year. So remember it like it was yesterday, like Ty said about baseball. But honestly, that's cool. But it is the stuff you really remember are your buddies and like the experiences you had off the court, off the mat. We stay really close. My wife gives me crap all the time. She's like, because we do March Madness.
Yeah.
I do this fishing trip with a couple of high school buddies. We constantly talk, text, see each other when we're in town, go to lunch. She thinks I'm crazy. She graduated from Urbandale, so big school, but she doesn't have those relationships. I'm like, this is what it's all about.
So my mom is kind of famous for making these big breakfasts. She used to make them before football games. I'd come to school and hand it out to all the guys. And after Luke's sophomore year at state, here he's a zombie walking around school at 103 pounds, skin's hanging off of him. He goes, wrestles at state, and the next morning he's back in Eagle Grove, comes over for a big breakfast at my mom's, and I will never forget how fat his face was that next day, because you must have just been, just everything in sight. You must have just been.
I'm pretty sure I weighed like 125, 130.
Yeah.
This is a day or two after the state tournament.
Yeah.
Wow. And I went from
sunken
growing hair on parts of my body that because you're cold, you don't have any body fat, so your body starts to grow hair. I went from that and sunken in cheeks to I look like a chipmunk. I look like I had stuff shoved in my cheeks.
Yeah. So that's where that kind of the mental focus of wrestling is it's just different than any other sport.
It's amazing
to go through that. How many months is that?
It was 4.5. And I'll tell you, I was in some dark places for those 4 months. And it wasn't because of the sport of wrestling. I love the sport of wrestling. It was cutting weight. Like when you deprive your body of food and energy, like it's bad. Like,
do you have any lasting effects from that?
No.
Nothing.
His hair turned gray at 18.
Yeah, I've been gray for a long time. That might have something to do with it.
I know Matthew McConaughey was talking about when he cut weight for that one show. I can't remember that one movie.
Oh, yeah.
He used, I don't know, some kind of drug or HIV.
Fighters Club.
And he lost and he's a strong guy. I mean, he's, 50 pounds. Quite a bit because he really looked gaunt. He said it took him like a year or two to kind of get back to normal when he started eating right. And it took him a long time to get back at that after the kind of weight he cut.
Yeah, I can't even
at his
imagine.
age. Well, let's go from, obviously we talked about high school here a little bit, college. Anything come to mind in college? You guys play ball?
We both went to Iowa Central. Fort Dodge is about a half hour from Eagle Grove. Yeah. So it felt comfortable to go there. They had great sports, so we were both part of, he played baseball, I played football. We were there 2 years. I transferred on to Iowa, just was a student, didn't play on. Luke went out to North Carolina and played baseball at Campbell.
Yep.
So I kind of dug in Iowa City, and once Luke was done playing at Campbell, he transferred back to UNI to finish up. And as soon as he graduated, he moved to Iowa City because he was coming down here every weekend to hang out anyway. So
it was game on.
Moved down here after we both graduated, trying to figure out what the next step was. Maybe you can talk about how you got into the fitness industry, because he was first in and I was the one that was just dying to get in, but I didn't really know how.
Yeah. So sitting in a class, I was a criminology major actually in college. Always had the idea of being a kind of a narcotics. I wanted to get into narcotics, an exciting part of, chasing that down. But fitness was always, kind of a side love of mine. I always worked out and enjoyed sports, and fitness came with the sport. So I was sitting in a class one day, and a classmate of mine, Gloria Hadachek, was in there. I didn't know her at the time, but I'd walked into class, and she was talking with a professor about her and her husband just opening a new gym. It was the second gym. It was in LaPorte City, so right down the road. And she kind of turned around and was like, yeah, we're looking for somebody to help us open it. And we need a little bit of assistance, maybe keep it open 20 hours a week, whatever. And so after class, I met with her, and I was like, hey, I could use $100 a week, to spend on booze or whatever. And so she hooked me up with her husband, Joe. And Joe Hadachek, in the 90s, he was the head football coach at BV. At the time, they were in LaPorte City. He had 2 sons, a daughter. I don't think he might have 1 son in high school, but he ended up becoming the Union LaPorte City high school football coach. They won a state title in 2011, but just very, very well known, just big name. I would be surprised if anybody in the athletic realm on the eastern side of the state didn't know who Joe Hadachek was. Anyway, he hires me. I walk into his gym. I'm like, hey, I'm Luke. I talked to your wife in class. and had maybe a 5-minute conversation with him. He's putting together a piece of strength equipment, and he's like, all right, you're hired. So I stay and I start helping him put stuff together. And that's how I kind of got into the fitness world. Well, Joe Hadachek was, he played football and roomed with Mark Farley, the UNI football coach. And in their little group was a guy named Martin Bruder. Martin Bruder was the vice president at Second Wind Exercise Equipment at the time. I kind of let Joe what I wanted to do. You know, I'd love to sell fitness equipment or be in that area. I'd love to be in Iowa City. Yeah. My boys are in Iowa City. He got me hooked up with Bruder and ended up getting a job at the Coralville Second Wind. So I moved down here right after I graduated. It was such a chill job. You know, I talked to people about fitness and, you know, treadmills and equipment and stuff. I didn't have to be at the store until 10 a.m., which meant I could go out with the guys most nights. I mean, it was a great time. We often reminisce about our time in Iowa City because it was just, we didn't have a ton of responsibility, but we were making money that we could go out and do stuff. So it was a great time. So I ended up working there for 4 years. Yep.
And so while they weren't helping customers, they just work out in the store on the floor model stuff. And so I was working an office job that I despised. And I was always getting, you know, hey, Tyler, you got to stop talking to everybody, because I like to talk and I like to learn about people. And so when I'd clock out and I'd, you know, try to catch up with these guys, I'd find myself going to Second Wind, and that's where I'd go work out. Okay. So I was just hanging out there in all my free time, exercising, watching these guys sell. And I was like, man, I got to get in somehow. So I got to know at the time the district manager, and I remember the phone was ringing at Second Wind one day, and I had heard these guys, and so they were out back or outside or something. So I picked up the phone. I said, thanks for calling Second Wind. This is Tyler. And it was the district manager, Doug, and he said, Tyler, nice job answering the phone, but don't ever do it again. I said, all right. I said, but hey, you know, if there's a way for me to get in Second Wind, I would love to. And I got to know him a little bit. Said, yeah, I'll keep an eye out. Well, an opportunity came up to work at the Davenport store. And he's like, you know, you're going to have to be there every day, essentially. And I said, it's fine. Let's do it. So at the time back then, the store was open from 10 a.m. till 9 p.m. And typically 2 guys would split that shift. One guy would work in the morning, maybe overlap in the early afternoon. One would close. Well, the way we worked it out was I would drive to Davenport on a Monday to work the afternoon. And because we closed at 9 and I'd have to be there the next day, I would just sleep at the store. I just had a blow-up mattress. I'd sleep at the store. It was in a strip mall, and 2 doors down was like a women's hair salon. And I would always go shoot the breeze with them. And they just, you know, they liked the 20-some-year-old kid coming over and talking to them. So I would literally wake up in the morning to work that morning shift the next day, brush my teeth in the bathroom. I'd walk down, get coffee with the ladies. They'd wash my hair in the sink for me, and I'd go clock in, and I'd start selling again the next day. And so I did that for like 8-9 months, and finally was given the opportunity to manage the Cedar Rapids store after that. And so that's how I got into the retail part. And retail was cool because you have 10, 15 minutes of these people's time of their day to earn their trust, to find out what's important to them, what aches them, you know, find those hot button things and try to help them and try to knock down a sale. And it was fast paced. And I really liked that. And I think that when I ultimately ended up moving to Colorado, and I went to work for another fitness equipment dealer out there, and same, I managed a store in Cherry Creek, and super fast paced there. And I just loved it. I thought this is what I'm going to do for a long time. I really liked it. And it was, what year was that? 2013,
11,
12. Yeah, somewhere in there, where Martin Bruder, the guy that hired him, he split off with Second Wind and they went and started their own thing. Well, I was working for a completely different dealer out in Colorado, and I get a call one day from Martin, and he says, "Hey, we're looking for an outside rep. You ever think about selling commercial?" I didn't even know that industry. I didn't even know that existed. I just assumed they bought from manufacturers, and I didn't know there were boots on the ground. So I started, making some calls. I talked to the guy that was the Iowa rep at the time that Luke knew, and said, what does this look like? And I could kind of see my now wife, she didn't like the fact that I was at a retail store every weekend. It wasn't going to be conducive to, a long-term relationship. So after talking to that rep, learning about the business, talking to my now wife, and yeah, let's try it. Let's get out there and see what that looks like. And so that was kind of my evolution into outside sales, was working through a retail store into, hey, there's this whole industry you've never even heard of, and just jumping and giving it a shot.
What's the average customer think about when they walk in the door?
In retail?
Is it New Year's Eve or New Year's Day? They go, I got a resolution, I got to lose weight, I got to get in shape. Because most people know that, right? But they talk about it, but they got to get started somehow. Do you guys help motivate them or show them around and they get them excited about stuff? Hopefully they can.
Yeah, I think that there's a big misconception of how long you have to do something, what that commitment actually looks like. Right. I think if anything, in the retail world, you almost play psychiatrist to these people too. They come in and they just sometimes will unload all of their issues to you. And so you have to, sift through that and find out, how do I get them to the point where I can help them? And, a treadmill isn't the answer to all of those people. You have to really dig sometimes to find out how you can truly help them out.
Your card says retail salesman. A salesman is the last thing you have to be when somebody walks in. I mean, you're digging to find out. And the good sales guys, the guys that did the most business, were just that. You can't, there's always this big thing about, stop talking about price, stop discounting, because it's not about the price of the piece. Like, you got to find out what's important to the customer, then mold that around what piece of equipment you feel like would benefit them the most. And, stop selling stuff, just find out what they need.
And I think Luke and I both kind of had the ability to, you see someone pull up in a certain type of vehicle. It doesn't have to be a really nice vehicle, but something about that could spark a conversation with that customer. They come in, they have an Iowa Hawkeye shirt on. Oh, did you see the game this weekend?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Cooper.
Oh, jeez. Just anything, any nugget of information that you can pull from what you're seeing, what you're hearing, to connect on a personal level first and earn that trust. That's the part I really like about it.
Do you think most people want to get in shape? They know they're not in shape, don't know how to do it, don't know how to start. I mean, how do you motivate them? How do you, obviously you get to know what they want, what their needs are. But I think most people, get to a point, some people get to the point where they're kind of lost, where maybe they played sports in high school and they're older and they go, where do I start? How do I do? Is it a treadmill? Is it a cycle?
Yep.
And I was in Decorah last weekend and I noticed a ton of electric bikes. And I was sitting there thinking, that gets people out, maybe during COVID, got them doing something. Even though they're electric, so what? They're out enjoying themselves. They're going for rides. It helps them get up the hills. And that business has just went crazy, I think, electric bikes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everybody wants to be fit.
Right.
To answer that first question, I think everybody wants to, but you put on 5 pounds and then you don't even think about it, and you look again and it's 15, and it just snowballs. And I think people get in a rut and they don't know what to do. And truly, it's pretty simple. You just got to keep moving. You got to kind of take care of the calorie intake, keep drinking a lot of water. It's not rocket science. It's just, you got to keep moving. And so, especially in retail, you would get a lot of injuries. Oh, I got a bad hip. I got a bad knee. I got a bad foot, whatever. And so luckily in our industry and for the companies that we worked for, we had a lot of solutions to those problems. And you just have to help them find what that solution is and get over that hump of, I can't do that. Because the fitness world, it has some pretty unrealistic expectations. You see a Nordic Track commercial on TV and the guy's 240 pounds shredded. It's like, well, he didn't ride the Nordic Track elliptical to look like that. So you have to get over those two. But I think it's just finding a way for people to balance normal life with trying to stay healthy. And that was what really excited me about retail. So I was a little apprehensive and nervous about moving to commercial sales and doing outside sales because you don't have as personal a touch on the end result of each user. It's great. It's fun filling up fitness centers and kind of seeing the process of how that plays out. But the personal relation isn't as prominent.
I think a lot of people are intimidated to go to a gym. They might go in there they see a lot of fit people, and that might just put them into a different mindset. So they come into push, pedal, and pull. They can just get equipment, go home with it.
Yep.
You can deliver it, set it up, and they can at their own time when they want to get up, when they want to go to sleep, whatever, get on it and work out.
Yeah.
They probably don't feel as intimidated, do they?
Well, yeah, and COVID, when that all happened, that was huge. I mean, I lived in Denver at the time, and if I remember right, the gyms in Iowa closed for a couple of weeks, and then they found some ways around some loophole things to reopen. In Denver, they stay closed. I mean, for months and months. And so it forced people's hands to figure out, like, well, let's go to the park. Let's go for a walk. Let's get a bike. Let's go for bike rides. Let's find something to do. And so at the time, I mean, my commercial business completely stopped in Colorado. Everything just stopped. But we had this warehouse full of fitness equipment. So I was putting Craigslist ads together, Facebook Market ads together, and people were dying to get fitness equipment of any kind at that time, to where I had a guy come in. There was one 70-pound dumbbell. The rubber on the head had ripped off, and he just said, "How much for that?" Because he was looking to do something. Yeah. And so when the gyms closed, that was a kind of a point in time where people had to check themselves and figure out, okay, how can I take personal responsibility for my fitness goals? And because the gyms weren't an option.
And they ran out of equipment, didn't you?
Oh my gosh!
They ran out of dumbbells. You couldn't get anything. Amazon, everything.
It was
That
a mess.
Yeah,
crazy.
it was a really crazy time.
Yeah.
And the fitness world has course corrected. Everything's caught up now, and
Right.
lead times are fine, and obviously the gyms are open. But it really was a change in how people looked at fitness.
So Luke, tell us about, I know you set up City High's weight room, and I was out there maybe a couple months ago, and I walked through the gym and I saw that. I was just completely blown away.
Yeah,
Like
so
a college gym or
yeah, they're amazing.
it
Like,
is amazing. So tell us about that. Tell us about that project.
yeah, so I was a little behind Tyler getting into the commercial world. He got in a little quicker because he had the opportunity. But when I got in, the rep that had Tyler's job before him wasn't really doing a lot with high schools. So I was kind of like, you know what? I talk the talk. I know what this is all about. I'd love chatting with ADs and coaches and whatnot. Shoot, at the time, Marv was probably 15, 16 years into his tenure at West, and people knew the Reiland name a lot in the AD world. So I was like, I'm going to put an emphasis on high schools, and I'm really going to start selling them. So at that time, I got basically the entire state of high schools. We worked it out with the other rep that, okay, you take high schools in the entire state, I'll give up another market, you can sell elsewhere. Well, the ball's got to start rolling somewhere. So I got a couple smaller deals. Indianola was my first one. Carlisle, got a couple going and had some showcases. Well, at that time, I mean, it just started going and going and going, and got Urbandale, which was still to this day, them and Iowa City are kind of my, diamond. They're my showcase, huge, almost 10,000 square foot weight rooms.
Wow.
And Iowa City, then they reached out. They wanted bids. Their bid had already they've already publicly put it out. It was actually spec'd to my competition. But City High played Johnston in playoff football last year, and I invited him to come take a look at Urbandale's before the game. Well, the football coach was busy, but I got the AD to come in, and he was just floored. He's like, "This stuff is amazing." You've seen the room, so there's a lot of customization.
Yeah.
You walk in, you know exactly where you're at.
Yeah.
But it's kind of that oh shit factor. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Get to talking with him. He brings a football coach back 2 weeks later. Mind you, the football coach is good friends with my competition's son. So they're very close, which is why it was all spec that way. And he's still floored. He's like, "This is amazing." I started asking questions like, "What's most important to you? Why would you do this for X instead of this? Here's some options." I basically just started asking the questions that you would ask anybody. And they got to thinking, they're like, "You know what? I really don't know." So I had them prioritize their list of things. They pull the bid, they respec it to my equipment, which in our industry is a grand slam.
Yep.
It's beyond a home run. I mean, when something is out there for bid with somebody else and you're able to show them something different, they retract it. They had to because they had some construction things change. So that gave them the opportunity to pull it back, put a new one out with our equipment. We end up winning the bid. Flooring went in. They didn't have platforms. If you were in there, you saw the black City High platforms. Because the flooring went through the contractor that did the renovation, they didn't bid out platforms. So again, I'm like, you guys need to put platforms in here. Like, we do all of this work and it's just the floor is all the same. It's not going to look as good. I'm like, "You guys want platforms, right?" "Yeah, let's do platforms." So I use the same company for my flooring and I get them platforms. I'm like, "I'll take care of the install with my guy. I'll coordinate with your installers." So we get them platforms in the deal as well. So it was all about customer service, asking questions, making sure that they're getting what they want and what their kids want. Not to mention, I live in Des Moines and I was in Iowa City. He lives in Iowa City, so I was staying with him all the time. I was here probably at least once a week for a couple months. I was here all the time. There were days when I was just driving over and going back. And I basically outworked my competition. I mean, I was to the point where the City High coach was like, "This one's you showed us that this is important to you. We like your equipment. This is the route we're going."
Did you set it up? Did you put the equipment together and set it up?
Yep. So that's not technically our job, but I know Tyler does it. I do it. Anytime I have a bigger job like that needs coordination, I'm there. I'm there the whole time. It took us 3 days to install from start to finish on the equipment, but there's a lot of particulars with all of that equipment. Uprights going a certain way, safety's going a certain way, things. So even my installers who have done a few jobs for me, they need me there to make sure that stuff goes correctly, because I worked with the coach. I know where the stuff is supposed to be. But and then there's always, hiccups along the way. That's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of line items on that order. So, you end up having to come back and
you play project manager. It's good to be there because you've been so laser focused on this project for months, whereas our install guys, this is just another install for them. They've not even seen most of this. So you want to be there because every every logo means something to you and it's important. And we're fortunate in that we do have our own delivery team, and so we can kind of manage that. We don't just hire third party to come in and knock it out. So it's nice to be able to have full control of how that install process goes.
And we might add the City High Gym. It's good for obviously boys and girls sports, right? The whole thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So and all the kids are welcome.
Yep. And that has become, and not just the athletes. I mean, they're PE classes. Yeah. The kids, the general population of students gets in there and works out too. So you do have to make sure that you have, lighter dumbbells, lighter barbells, lighter, even, so-called women's bars, that aren't quite as wide in diameter. So smaller hands can get around. I mean, all the things. But yeah, you gotta take all that into account now because it's being used by a wider range of kids.
How many calls have you got after you did that with other coaches?
A lot. So the City High one was huge because it's on the east side of the state.
Yeah.
I've done a bunch on, Des Moines and west side. Right. the City High one is huge. I mean, I'm working with, you know, Anamosa, West Delaware, Bettendorf. I've done all these eastern side of the state deals. They're not done yet, but you know, they jump on Twitter and they see City High football posting this video of their new weight room. They're like, holy crap, where did that come from?
Yeah,
They're bringing drones in to shoot these
Oh, really?
videos at City High.
I have a video guy that does our CrossFit competition that my wife and I put on, and I was like, hey, I need you. And we brought him in, and he starts the video off with a drone of the football field, and then he comes down into the press box, and then it shoots right through the front doors of the weight room, and he takes the drone right through the racks. So it like,
Oh, that's really cool.
it's awesome.
I never thought about a drone inside a gym.
Yeah, he did a great job with it.
In Eagle Grove in the early 2000s, we were lifting in a blown out janitor's closet, and all the fitness equipment was hand-me-downs from Drake University.
That was already 20 years old.
Was it a universal gym?
Yeah,
we had a universal.
The old bronze
seats. Eagle Grove's a purple and gold school.
Yeah.
We had all this blue fitness equipment, and it just, it has changed so much, the fitness industry.
Well, the kids are way stronger, they're way faster. They're, you know, and they start lifting, like you said, that just makes such a difference.
You know what's wild too is, the City High football coach, Mitch, he was the one that said this, but he asked, I'm doing another similar deal at Dallas Center Grimes in a couple months. And he asked how many racks do they have. And I told him, he's like, all right, we want one more than that. So it's this arms race, you know, to keep up with everybody else. And every school finds money differently.
Right.
You know, some are, you know, like
boosters.
Yeah, some are boosters, some are school, some actually is a bond issue, which was Urbandale's. So the money comes from different places, but the motivation to go big and, you know, be bigger than the next school
that's where social media, you know, for all its flaws, social media has been a positive thing in the fitness industry.
I bet.
Because when I used to go to the gym, if I was doing my cardio, I would keep an eye on what was going on in the gym because it helped me with my job. I'd watch, okay, what's kind of trendy over here? What's happening over here? I remember it must have been 2017, 18, somewhere in there. There was a distinct switch in the industry from my vantage point where it used to be women were over here doing cardio. The guys were over here by the dumbbells and the racks. And one day I looked over and I saw high school girls in the racks and they're looking at their phone and I could tell that they were watching workout videos. And I thought, hey, that's a real positive thing. That intimidation factor now is gone, and it's more of a this is inclusive. We can get everybody in these racks, and so the City High weight room is going to be great for athletics, football for sure, but past that, all sports, all kids.
That's a great point because you see the universities now. Iowa State is one of my larger. Iowa State Rec is one of my larger clients, and in 2016. They bought all cardio from me. I mean, I can't remember how many pieces, like a ton of pieces for both the lead rec and the state gym. Well, they traded in like 30 some ellipticals last year and they've put in 10 more racks, like this huge shift from cardio to strength. And you see everybody in those racks. And the rec director, Gary, he's like, we need more. Like they're actually working on taking it all to the basement, blowing out walls and doing a whole functional fitness rack area because there are hundreds and hundreds of kids waiting for these racks every night. And it's just this giant shift. I think it's functional fitness. I think it's CrossFit. I think it's a lot of this competition style fitness that is getting these young kids involved. And it's not just, you know, getting on the hamster wheel and walking for a while.
And that's what's cool about the fitness industry to me is that there are always going to be ebbs and flows in what's popular. You know, pin select used to be huge. You sit down, you grab here, you push. You grab this one, you pull. Well, that is kind of ebbed and flowed, but there's always going to be a pendulum swing back to the basics. And we're definitely in that right now where functional training, Olympic lifting, dumbbells are super popular. You know, there's always changes in the cardio industry. There's a new type of machine that'll come out that has the wow factor, but it kind of comes and goes and fizzles out. But you'll always have those cornerstones that are popular. And right now, man, the functional training's huge.
Give me a barbell or an elliptical, I'm taking the barbell all day long.
Yeah.
For anybody.
Strength training is important for all kinds of sports, or everything actually.
Like you mentioned before we started, just even for an aging population,
absolutely,
where you're losing your strength, we're all losing strength every day. So if you can improve on that, like you alluded to earlier, getting off the couch, grabbing a gallon of milk, that's all super important.
Even as you get older, I try to go at least a couple times a week to lift. And I think that's really important, not just run or jog or ride a bike. You need to lift. I think that's important with your bones and how you're set up, like your muscle mass and whatnot. So, well, guys, this has been great. This has been fun. I'm glad you came in and talked about the fitness industry, push, pedal, pull. And this has been a joy to have you. So thanks again for
Appreciate
coming
the invite. Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.